Okay, so thank you guys for joining us today. So today we're here with Don Milstein from H2O Degree. He's actually the president of H2O. Dave Rivera, who is our oh my God, territory person from H2O, is also with us today. You guys, if you've been here before, recognize me. I'm Brian with the Osborne Company. Um, Basic, controls and functionalities of Zoom, in case it's not your standard platform that you guys are using, is on the bottom. You do have a Q&A and you do have a chat feature. You're more than welcome to type in any questions or anything in the chat. We will get those answered for you directly during the presentation. Don, as I said, was the president of H2O Degree. H2O Degree is, heavily focused on submetering. And just so you guys know, they're not just water submetering. They do have electrical, gas, and BTU submetering. They also do leak detection. So I think there's going to be a little bit in there on the leak detection. Today, we brought you guys in because they do have some new technologies that we have already used and implemented in the field, and Don's going to go over that. So with that introduction, I'm just going to pass it over to you, Don, and I will sit back and watch the chat for you.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you for the introduction. So again, my name is Don Milstein. I'm president of H2O Degree, and like you said, we have Dave Rivera, our Western Regional Manager. And here's our contact information. I'm sure Brian will send out this presentation to everyone.
Yeah, I'm
After
going to get
this.
it a link to it in the chat right now
Okay,
too.
perfect. So there's our contact information, and obviously our website can go to at any time. And what I want to do is just going to take you through kind of, quick minute background on the company. We'll talk about rules in California related to submetering after explaining what submetering is, then go over some products, and we can always talk about different projects. But I think you'll find this informative and no question, very timely considering the marketplace today. So the first is, what does H2O do, right? So we focus on 3 or 4 areas, one being what we call tenant submetering. This is where you're actually billing the tenants for their actual use. And like we talked about, we do water primarily, but we also do a ton of electric, gas, BTU metering. If we're not billing tenants, then a lot of times we're working with the owners of the buildings to look for leak detection, see if they have water leaks in the toilets or the shower going down the drains, and also floods. And that's more critical. That's more about physical damage than just wasted water. And then we also get involved in the thermostat controls and in general, overall energy or utility management. The company's been around since 2007, over close to 250,000 meters and sensors throughout the United States, primarily in apartment buildings, over 120,000, but we also do a fair amount of commercial space, mixed use, retail, those type of things. And like we said, projects can range anywhere from 50-unit apartment building to a couple thousand units in one apartment complex. But that is truly where we'll focus our discussion for today. But do realize you can apply what we say in a commercial office building, in a school, university type setting. Customers tend to be anywhere from small owners that 3 guys threw up 100 grand each and built an apartment building, obviously more than that, or these large real estate investment trusts that own 50,000 apartments across the United States, like a Gray Star or Avalon Bay or Aimco. And then University of South Carolina, we've done work, a lot of universities in Pennsylvania. We've done it with Yale University in Connecticut, all over. We've done some work with USC. So again, we kind of the full gamut there. When we talk multifamily, we're talking apartments, but that also includes student housing, condos, co-ops, military housing. There's some opportunities in the hotel sector, so keep that in mind. And what do we mean by submeter? The word sub is sub of the main utility meter. So you think about, you got a 100-unit apartment complex, the water utility gives you a 3-inch main master meter is what we call it, that big blue one on the top right. And now they go, congratulations, Mr. Owner of a building, you got water for your 100 tenants. Good luck. And they get one bill per month from the utility. So the landlord's got to decide, do I put in and just include water as part of my rent? Do I maybe take the water bill and divide it by 100 apartments or 100 different toilets and charge that way? And we'll talk about that today in new construction in California, that is not allowed to do what's called a RUB, ratio utility billing, where you're doing some allocation. And where most people are going, and state of California put in a new rule, which we'll talk about a couple of years ago, says you must put in an individual sub-meter, a meter sub of the main utility meter. And that's the blue and red ones in the center there that you can see. And those would go in and monitor the individual use of each apartment. And now the landlord will bill the tenant for their actual use. And what that does is create incentive for the tenants to conserve water because they're being held accountable. And the goal there is, let's, water efficiency. How do we save water? If I'm the owner, I want to reduce my operating expense. And I can do that a few ways. I'm going to change behavior of the tenants, hold them accountable. They'll change their behavior. They'll take shorter showers. They won't just throw a tissue in the toilet and flush it. All the different things. They'll make sure the sink's totally off, right? But if I'm not being charged for that, I don't care. You treat it like a hotel room where, you just leave the water running while you're doing other things and come back to it. But at the same time, we want to change how the maintenance team of the ownership works. Make sure they're out there fixing leaks as soon as they're identified, making sure there's not a broken flapper and get that repaired. And we have ways, and we'll talk about how you can actually give you a notice of when you have a leaky toilet and go react to it. And all this does is really make that building not only water efficient, but increase the profitability by lowering the expense. And ultimately that helps the value of the overall building when they go to sell it or refinance it. So it's really a team effort here with the building and the tenants, get them to save, working with the maintenance teams. Overall, it works out. So like we said, the old model was water's just included in rent. And today people have moved to put in actual sub-meters or this RUB solution. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get the tenants held accountable. And what we've seen for years, lots of studies by the National Apartment Association, the Environmental Protection Agency, even some certain ones by individual states, have shown that if you sub-meter a building and charge the tenants for the actual use, you're going to see savings of anywhere from 10 to 25% on average. You just will, by holding people accountable, by fixing leaks. It is a huge opportunity for savings. Not only dollars, but, look, you live in California, critical area for water, where you're always having shortages and crisis. This helps that, no question about it. And that's why the state has put in some new rules there. So the rule that I keep referring to, and it's good just to get that out of the way up front, is California Senate Bill 7. And that came out, originally signed in 2016. And it said starting January 1st, 2018, all new construction, and they define new construction as multifamily over 4 units, must put in actual sub-meters. So you cannot include water and rent, cannot just allocate it. You must install an actual sub-meter, hold the tenants accountable, and it'll encourage savings. So when you're doing new construction, new designs, this is part of the requirement. And, it comes at a couple levels, right? There's a hardware requirement that the meters must be approved, meet plumbing code, but also the hardware has to be approved, what's called California Weights and Measures, which is part of the California Department of Agriculture. And they test the meters up front. They make sure they're accurate at the Sacramento level and then get tested at individual counties. And we'll speak about that. It also has some control over how much the fees are charged, right? A lot of times landlords will hire a third party to read these meters and send a bill to their tenant, and they're only allowed to charge a certain amount on top of that. And then one that is probably less known is in there. There's a I guess, a standard for leaks. And it says if you identify a leak in your property, whether it's a toilet or shower, underground leak, a pinhole leak, whether the tenant tells you or you say it on yourself, that leak must be fixed within 21 days. And if there's no repair, then you're limited to the billing of the water usage to the bill itself or $15. And most bills are probably 30 to 50 to $75 a month. So it's a big hit if you don't get that leak repaired. And after 180 days, if you don't repair it, you're not allowed to charge for the water. So it's in the landlord's, uh, you know, need to really get in there, and they're incentivized to control leaks and help out there. Some other things you can see, not all buildings fall under this, right? If it's, you look bottom left-hand corner there, long-term healthcare, low income, student housing, housing as a place of education, those are not required, or elderly care. But pretty much your normal market rate apartments that you see every day must install these meters. Installation must be done by a contractor licensed by the state. Must have at least employed one journeyman who's graduated from the program. And then there's this little certification you need to get to be a registered service agent. There's a 1 hour test that's very easy to complete, not a big deal. But California has some unique rules. There's no question about it. Everywhere else in the country, if we want to sell 200 meters to a contractor for a job, we just send them the meters. In California, those meters not only had to be approved at a state level originally, we have to send them to an individual county. The county then tests that meter, and then takes time to get through the process. You have some counties that can get it done in 6 to 8 weeks. Other counties are 5 months. I know LA is around 9 to 12 months. San Diego is probably in the 5 to 6 month range. Some up by you, I believe Alameda is probably 3 to 4 months to get meters through. So it takes a lot of time, and there's been a lot of issues with failure because these counties have inconsistent test benches. The people testing it, it's not their only job, right? I mean, yesterday, this person that was an expert at testing water meters was at a grocery store, at a Ralph's grocery store, looking at the deli meat scale to see if it was accurate. And tomorrow will be at a gas station. So you can see that creates a lot of inconsistency with the testing. So it's definitely an issue in California. It's been a major headache for a lot of our customers. And we have recently switched to a new technology in meters that has had incredible amount of success getting through these test procedures without failing, and really has been able to move the needle as far as that, and as well as some great advantages in the new meters, which we'll talk about. We do have meters pre-certified, and we keep some in stock at Osborne, and then most of the jobs are done on a job basis, but we do it both ways. So just for a half a second, when we talk submetering in an apartment building, apartments are built 3 ways, and it depends on whether it's a high rise or a garden style and how big of a building. The one way is what we call single point of entry. So that means I got a hot water heater in every apartment, and I bring one cold line into that apartment, and right before it splits to the hot water heater and to the cold water for the washer and the toilets and everything else, I'm going to put the meter right before that T. And with 1 meter, I grab all the water, single point of entry. So I only need 1 meter for the whole building. The second way is, instead of using hot water heaters in every apartment, I have some central heated water system. I got a boiler in the basement or in one area of the building, and I'm now heating water. So I'm bringing a hot water feed and a cold water feed to every apartment. And in that case, I need 2 meters, one hot, one cold. We call that dual point of entry, and I'm using 2 meters to monitor that. And the third way is what we call riser pipe or point of use. And that's where I have one riser and has all the cold water for the toilet. And all the toilets just ping off of that. Then I got another riser for the hot shower and another riser for the cold shower. hot vanity, cold vanity, hot kitchen, cold kitchen. So I might have 7 risers feeding one apartment. And in that case, I put an individual meter, we call it point of use, on each one of those sections. Most of what you see is in the first 2 sections, but there are a fair number of buildings that use that point of use.
And then Don, just because we're like super
Sure.
special,
Yep.
we have had applications where we needed a third meter because certain units were being recirculated through the unit.
Right.
So we can deal with that in, a plus minus kind of situation.
Yeah, it's a very much a challenge because of the accuracy and the flow there, but we can definitely discuss that when you have a recirc situation. So happy to do that. So with that said, what you might have experienced or what we've sold and others sell today are what we call pulse output meters, right? 3/4 inch water meters. One, the red one obviously is for hot. The blue one's for cold. It has a pulse output. You see that wire that comes out? And basically every time a gallon of water goes through, it sends a pulse, 1 gallon, 1 gallon. Some meters actually will do 1 pulse for every 10 gallons. We don't like that because it doesn't give you granular enough information to do leak detection as well as billing. But when you do this with that pulse output, that meter has to be installed first, and then take that wire and we install that into a pulse counter. And a lot of times our plumbing installers say, wait, what's a wire? I don't know what to do with that. I don't have a screwdriver to screw it in there. So it becomes a challenge. And there is some errors there that can be had. So meter to a pulse counter. And then in California, there's a special rule that says if that meter is not installed at American Disabilities Act height, ADA height of 4 feet, and if it's above that, where most of the time they're up in the ceiling, you now have to provide a remote display for the tenant to see it. And that's very costly, very ugly, lots more wiring. So that's how we used to do it. A lot of people still do it. We've now switched to what I think is a more elegant technology. We've had a lot of success with it. We've installed it throughout the United States in multiple jobs. And we'll talk about how this is the old way of doing it, and we have the new way. So our new series of meter is called the WM2100 series of meters for 3/4 inch. They come in 2 lengths, right? Here is a blue one for the cold water. This is 5 inches, but you have a little extender that can get 7.5 inch. So most people think of metering, I'm either going to put in a 5 inch lay length or 7.5 inch. We can accommodate both. You can see before we were using brass meters. These are all, plastic meters. These are all brass body, which, is definitely more user friendly and, a lot of people feel more confident with that. A key part here is this meter can be installed and approved by the state of California for either horizontal positioning or vertical. All the other meters were only had to be installed horizontally. So very key, this meter can be vertically installed. It has built into this meter is the wireless radio. So you no longer need that second piece, which is that pulse counter, which also has a radio. And you get rid of a pulse because these are what are called encoded registers. So basically that whole meter is built in, reads the water data and transmits it all as one. So there's no wiring, right? So this is called an encoded wireless meter with an integrated radio. And that radio is what allows us to communicate throughout a property. And we'll show you some pictures of that in a second. The meter can be sealed. So that's what happens once we send these meters to weights and measures in a local county. They'll typically test 10% of the meters. And they go, okay, these meters test fine. And then they put a seal on every one of them. This way they know they've been approved. And, they're looking to protect the tenants in this situation, make sure they have accurate meters installed. And they all operate on a battery to do all that wireless communication. And that has a 10-year battery life. And I kind of skipped over this, but there's what's called a mobile app Because, when we get you a box of meters, you got to tell somebody who's that meter for. So you just kind of take your phone, pulls it up, it automatically reads the meter, and you put in that this is the meter that's going into apartment 1 or apartment 2, apartment 3. So you know that you have a rent roll, and we set up a whole framework ahead of time. So as soon as you pull it in, you just drag over which apartment that meter's going into. So that is a huge opportunity here, right? We've eliminated wiring of the pulse counter. We have a built-in radio there, got a mobile app to do the commissioning. And the last piece, especially for California, is instead of having an individual remote display in each apartment that has to be wired and mounted on the wall and looks ugly like this RDU 1000, we have approved and gotten the state to approve and all the local counties to approve what we call a lobby display. And that's this little, almost looks like an iPad, right? It's, about 8 inches by 10. And this can be installed in the mailroom, and it can be installed in the reception area. It might be installed in the property manager's office, but it's in a common area where everyone has access to it. And when a tenant moves in, they get the keys and they get their meter number, the serial number on the meter. So now at any time, they can go access this keypad in a central location, put in their serial number of their meter, and up comes their actual usage. So alleviates having to put in, if it's a 200-unit apartment, 200 individual displays in each apartment, they can just go here. And trust me, the reality is very few, if any, people go look at their meters, but the state wants to provide that. So very critical that this is part of our new system. So we eliminated the wiring for the pulse counter, we eliminated the remote display, we've lessened the amount of effort that has to be done within the apartment, and you just have this one display that gets mounted in a common area. This is, see this on our spec sheets, right? It's a 3/4 inch, 230 PSI is the operating pressure. The threads are 1 inch on one side, MPSM, obviously. And then, the flow rate, we always quote this as 22 gallons per minute. Nominal is 11, but this can handle up to 22 gallons per minute. Most meters of this size are around 20 gallons per minute. So, you're going to be hard pressed. You're going to have a 4 or 5 bedroom apartment or some luxury suite where you're going to need something bigger than this meter. And again, meters can be for cold and for hot. And obviously, a lot of the engineers always ask about the accuracy. All the meters we sell, to be an approved meter in the state of California, let alone anywhere else, you got to meet American Water Works Association testing accuracy of 1.5%. So that's where these meters fall. And then there's a pressure loss diagram with the flow rate per gallon to see that this meets the need for that facility. So all this is well documented. So the big advantages to this meter, right? We talked about the ease of installation without the wiring. Definitely saves, hours of labor in the wiring and configuration, and also removes what I would call the kind of the error-prone mistakes that could happen. The remote display is huge. It gets rid of installation in each apartment, makes it easy for the tenants to go see it, and they don't have to worry about it being in their apartment. And, probably very important is the ability to get these through weights and measures in the local county at a much higher rate. We've had no failures going through weights and measures. Every job we've done, they've tested it, they've proved it, and it's gone through. I had mentioned before, another big advantage here is that instead of just being horizontal position, the meters can be vertical. That's a big advantage when you're looking at how to install those meters, where your space limitations are. It works great. And we'll
And
talk. Yep,
Don, I was
sure.
just going to chime in because we have Ramon in our office who actually goes out and trains the guys for the commissioning at first, on these projects. And I can tell you the wiring usually caused us an issue where we would be on job sites multiple days.
Right.
And now with the tap and go on the new meter, it is so much easier to train these guys how to commission. So just on that side alone, the labor you're going to save versus the old style of setup. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no. I mean, the dollar savings are coming from labor, right? I mean, you're going to save at least, I don't know, pick a number, at least an hour per installation in savings. And by eliminating the need for those individual displays in each apartment, you're saving even more money. So it's really is a great opportunity here. The other thing is all this is working on a wireless network, not Wi-Fi. It's our own wireless network, but it's a open protocol, so anybody can use it. So I don't want anyone to think that, oh, this is kind of a closed system, by no means. And that network is called LoRaWAN, which stands for long range wireless. And all you need to know about that is you don't even have to work with the IT departments in these buildings. You just go install the gateway, which we'll talk about, and these meters come online. It's really an excellent and very strong from a communication standpoint. So, I'll say this jokingly, but you'll get, I mean, this is very plumbing contractor oriented, right? Very friendly from that standpoint. We've gotten rid of IT, we've gotten rid of wiring, right? We've made it easier from an installation. So again, not to repeat it, but you can see we talk about all the different savings, at least an hour per apartment in savings, and just makes it a much cleaner, easy installation, and not having to go back and troubleshoot, which is so painful. One other piece here is the meter. If you talk about that pulse meter, you think about that. I got a meter sending a pulse, and I got another device catching that pulse. And these are very accurate pieces of equipment, but once in a while, a pulse gets through. The state of California loves that this meter is what's called encoded register. And that lobby display is reading the actual face of the meter. And that's the reading that's going up into the cloud. So it really just improves the accuracy and reliability, without a doubt. And then, that makes it from a commissioning standpoint much easier because a lot of times, the meter would have maybe 100 gallons through it when it first starts because it went through the factory and then it went through test and measurement to be tested. And now you got to go program your system to say, oh, disregard that first 100 gallons. But here you don't have to do that. You're picking up the actual reading day one, whatever the meter read, and now 30 days later you read the end. So it makes it a lot better from that standpoint. So in addition, remember the first ones we showed you were 3/4 inch meters going up to 22 gallons per minute. You will have applications that are larger. So in this family, we have the WM 2200 series, which is for 1 inch and 1.5 inch pipes. Everything else is the same, except these are only for horizontal installations, right? They're not approved for vertical. But the bulk of what we've sold have been the 3/4 inch, but these are only for horizontal. Same thing, just larger. I forget it off the top of my head, but probably 50 to 100 gallons per minute kind of range. And, we see these in larger apartments, but we also see it when we're doing a whole townhome. And then definitely in the commercial space. We sell a ton of these when we're monitoring risers, we're doing a restaurant, we're maybe doing common area in a building, the pools, irrigation, some on the HVAC on makeup water. So it's nice to know that you have larger meters available with the same integrated meter. If not, we have meters that, 2 inch, 5 inch meters that we read with the pulse counter on the same network. So, no matter what you do, just think whatever your meter size is, we got a solution for you and all talk on the same wireless network. You can see here, what did I say? That was a pretty good guess by me. 55 gallons is max flow rate. So there you got that information there. That's for the 1 inch, and I'm sure it's a little higher on the 1.5 inch. But you can look at this on your own. Same with the accuracy and pressure loss. So all these meters ultimately have to talk to something, right? Because no one's going to go in and walk around and knock on the door to 100 different tenants and say, oh, I'm here to read your meter, right? That's not how it's done. They still do that in some buildings, definitely in New York. I've seen that. But for the most part, everything is wirelessly communicated. So to do that, we sell what's called a LAR, long range wireless gateway. This is about 10 inches by 12 inches, gets mounted on the wall. It has a CDMA cellular modem. So we don't have to use the internet that's there. We don't want to. We'd rather be on a cell modem. This way it's always on, and it helps with where to locate it, right? Because if it's on Ethernet, then you got to worry about where they're dropping a line. Here with CDMA, cellular, I can put it anywhere. So all I need is to plug it in, got to give it power, and off we go. So we typically will put these in the middle of the building, maybe on the first floor. Sometimes we'll even get to 20, 30 floors up, depends where it goes. And for the most part, as long as the meters, if you're in a garden style campus community, maybe I got 10 buildings, 2 stories each, there's a central location, maybe it's the recreation center or the leasing office. We'll install it there. We also can put it in an outdoor enclosure. So if there's no place to really grab it, we can do that. And I can be 1,000 feet away every meter and still communicate back to that box. That's about a 70-acre property. That's pretty strong. If I'm going in a high rise, we typically say we can get, anywhere from 10 to 20 stories can be covered with one gateway. If you need a second gateway, we sell a second gateway. That's not what drives the money. I mean, the gateways are a couple $1,000s. It's when you add up all the meters is where the cost is. So it's not a big deal with the gateways. And once we get all that meter data, you can see is just directly flow into that gateway in this picture. It then goes to our cloud server. And once we have that data, we now can process the data. And we share that with the property manager. We could share it with a third-party meter reading company that actually sends out bills on behalf of the landlord. We can send it to the on-site maintenance people to tell them there's a leak. And we've even had occasions where they've sent it to a plumber who already has an agreed upon action plan that says, oh, if I get a notification of a leak, I know I can go contact the site and go repair that leak. So it can be shared in a lot of different ways, which gives you a lot of flexibility. The last piece of this system is the lobby display. All right, so you can see there at the top of the display is the numbers. That's the numbers they put in for their apartment as far as the serial number, and it shows their actual usage. One display. This does need power and needs to be connected to the internet. This does not work on cell and it works on the internet, but that's always available in a common area. So, power and internet. So that's where all this does. This can be mounted what we call a surface mount, just right on the wall, or there's a little kit that you can cut a hole and make a flush mount and have it go inside the wall. All right. But again, this is a great tool approved by the state of California. Probably right now, it's the only approved lobby display on the market today. And this just gives you some more of the features of the size, and you can look at this on your own. All right. All right. And then most important, all these products have what's called NTEP, National approval, or CTEP, California approval, with the different numbers. So that's very important that any products you buy that are being installed for billing tenants must have California or national approval with these numbers. And that's what we have for all this. All right, let's take a minute here. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat or anybody wants to chime in.
One thing that we did have someone ask about, and just maybe talk about it for a second, the ability to submeter gas. So he's looking at a retail space and wanting to submeter his gas.
Yep. So we'll show at the end, but we have a whole line of gas meters, a whole line of electric meters, BTU meters, and all those meters would connect to that pulse counter, right? So a gas meter, the water meter I told you before, for every gallon that goes through, it sends out a pulse. The gas meter does the same. Electric meter, for every kilowatt hour, sends out a pulse. connects to that pulse counter, which has the built-in radio, and it's just part of the overall system. So we have a lot of projects where we'll do, gas and water in the same building for the multi-tenants, and then maybe in the common area, we're doing a restaurant or a grocery store, and we have gas, water, and electric there, but it's all part of the same system. So like I,
Um,
yep,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. So another one that came through is they were asking specifically because you had mentioned that it was for four or higher tenants is what code says.
right,
Does that mean that if you add an ADU unit, a new constructed ADU unit to a single family home, that is not required for billing?
yep, that is, at least
Yeah.
from everything we read, that is not required. It's got to be 4 tenants or above.
I mean, I still think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can have the single unit. It's
Oh,
a
you
little
could,
pricey on a single unit, but you can at least bill
right.
correctly and make them responsible for it.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then,
that's a, just to stop there, it's a good point. I mean,
yeah,
that is the requirement. It doesn't mean you can't bill it if it's under 4 units, or you can bill in student, or you can't bill in affordable housing. It just says it's not required, right?
and just to make sure, I think you said it, but just to say it again, Richard was asking, what's the max distance from meter to remote reader display? Oh,
So,
oh, oh, yeah, for the
yep,
display in the building. Yeah.
in the lobby. Okay, so that is, it's a good question, and I didn't mention that. So remember I said the gateway, you got to be within 1,000 feet or 10 to 20 stories of the gateway for your meters. Because the remote display strictly uses an internet feed, there is no distance. As long as I have an internet feed, it doesn't matter where that's located. There is no distance from the meters. It's only a distance from the meters to the gateway is where your only distance is. And if I'm not making myself clear, I could show that here. So here's the gateway in the building, reads the meters, and now this remote display is coming from the cloud. So there's no relationship on location of where that display needs to be, other than to be in compliance with California, it has to be in a common area at 4 feet or above, or 4 feet. That makes
Okay,
sense?
so quality keeps putting their hand up.
Okay,
So
good.
I'm
Let's
going
see
to
your
allow
question.
them to talk if they would like to. So you guys are signed in as your organization. So Quality Plumbing, if you had an actual, yeah, there you go. You're unmuted. You can ask your question.
The question is if there's a main line for one unit, if it's inch and a quarter, can we reduce that to a 3/4 meter, or does it have to be same line size, or can it
Yep,
be 1 inch? What
yep.
determines it?
Yeah, so we deal with this all the time. And what we've done is we've been able to work with the engineering community and the inspectors to say, hey, look, I know the line's coming in is 1 inch, but there's no reason you can't reduce it for the meter to 3/4 inch, because you're still going to meet the minimum amount of water pressure and load that's going through it at the 22 gallons per minute. And they've all bought off on it because it's a lot cheaper, a 3/4 inch. There's a huge difference in price between 3/4 and 1 inch. So as long as you meet all your compliance standards for pressure loss and gallons per minute, we have found there's been no issue in reducing it from a 1 inch to 3/4 inch. I'd have to talk to my more technical guys. How far can we go from a 1.5 inch down?
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Since we're a plumbing contractor, can we install those ourselves, or do we need to hire someone else?
To install
The
the,
meters, sub meters?
yeah, no, very much so. The
Yeah,
only
it's
thing
one
you
of the,
have to
yeah.
do, the only thing you'd have to do is in the state of California, for if they're going to be using it for billing, you not only have to be a contractor, you got to take that. Remember, I said that 1 hour test and $35 to
Yes.
pay for that test. So, maybe hit up Brian or Steve and they'll pay the $35 for it.
And yeah, and I'll send you a link too, so you have the information on how to do that test. And one thing, Don, that we didn't mention, and I talk about this when we oh, sorry, I had a question come in. Sometimes when we're at shows and stuff, is normally the way this works is you'll have a sub metering company that is, contracted out, those meters don't get installed by the plumber. They'll be, pipe connected just to flush the system, fill the system, that kind of thing. And then the submetering company will come in later and connect them. And then you run into the problem if they ever leak. Who's responsible for that connection now? Is it the plumber or the submetering company? And now at least you'll have a one-point installation where the plumber is the person actually installing the meter. I have a couple questions, but he put his hand back down. If he puts his hand back up, I'll grab him. Yeah, quality, you're still good. You're still allowed to talk.
Okay. Hi, this is Miguel. I'm here with our team at Quality. So I logged in because we didn't know we could talk. But so thank you guys for putting this meeting together. I have several questions. The first question is, what's the quote process? And then what information is needed in order for you to quote a system?
So you said what's the quote process? Is that what you said, right?
Yeah. And then I'll throw you several other questions that kind of.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, I didn't hear anything unless I missed it regarding spacer tubes and couplings.
Yep. So yeah, I didn't talk about those. Just so quote process is, you obviously send in, we get the drawings. If it's new construction, our team will completely take those drawings, do a full takeoff, give you a bill of materials, send it back to our buddies at Osborne. They'll go ahead and quote that to you. We work with the engineering community if there's any kind of changes that need to be done. So we give you that full package with all your submittals and everything you need for that. Typically what happens on a job is you're going to do 200 apartments, and you'll hear me say that because the average apartment size in the United States is 200 units. New construction, we're going to sell you spacer tubes, little plastic tubes that go in at 5 or 7.5 inch range. This way, when you're doing the new construction, put those in, flush the building. And now after that's all done and you're ready, you go in there, spacer tube comes out. We'd also sold you the couplings ahead of time. So you have the couplings, spacer tube, that goes in first. Now the building's ready, it's flushed out. And now you come undo the coupling, take out the spacer tube, throw in the meter, you're done.
Don, let me just chime in. This is Steve. One clarification on the quote. What we provide is a list price quote. Any purchase that you're going to make is going to go through a wholesale distributor.
Right.
So you would take that quote and, every distributor is going to set their own pricing. So you can go to a Pace or a Ferguson and they'll give you your buy price.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if I'm still on.
Yeah. You're still there.
So another question, is there a minimum unit count? So if we have a 4-unit, apartment complex, would you quote that?
Sure.
And then number 2 is, so the system that you talked about, the WM 2100, the WM 2200, and then the lobby display, and then the LoRa gateway, that's system, it's actually new to us. So far, everything we've been installing has been the traditional, where the end user has a display inside their property. So I just want to confirm, when you do say it's approved in California, does this include Northern California and Santa Clara County, Monterey County, Alameda?
Yep. So we've done a couple things, right? So we got approved at Sacramento at the state level to get your official numbers. And then everyone was concerned, this is different. What's that mean? And we've talked with easily a dozen different counties across California, including Alameda, Santa Clara, San Mateo, Butte. I'm just thinking what else is up in Northern Cal, probably some others beyond that, San Francisco. All of their local people have signed off, and we have some documentation on that, as well as a bunch down in Southern Cal. And we have installations already up and running in California. So yes, everyone is now is very comfortable with that aspect.
Okay.
And if it's new to them, we just say, hey, go to the state, go to the head inspector for all counties, who's also given us a letter that says it's approved, and you're in good shape.
Are you exclusive to the only quoting the system that you talked about, or would you quote another system that's called out on the drawings or on the plans?
So we, make sure I understand. So if they call out let's say it's a competitor, we would be able to show you alternatives, either with this meter or those other meters with a pulse. Like we can still quote you a pulse counter, but we're not going to sell the meters because the meters other meters have had so many problems getting through weights and measures. It's just not worth it. So we would take that and be able to convert it for you.
How do you compare to a traditional submeter company like Conservice
Mhm.
or UMC, who I'm sure you know or have heard about?
So those companies are meter reading and billing companies, right? So they're first and foremost, those are the third-party companies that sell meters, and their real function is to read the meters and collect and generate the bills to their tenants for $3, $4, or $5 a meter. A lot of times they'll also supply the meters. They're not manufacturers. They don't make anything. They buy meters from us. Conservice is one of our larger customers. So they buy meters from different companies and then either install it themselves, pay you to install it, some way like that. So we know that every one of our meters can talk to those companies. So today, on every day, we're sending a couple 100,000 meter data points to 40 to 50 of these meter reading companies around the country. So we're very competitive with them. We work with them. And what owners like is that they can still keep their same meter reading company that they live with for years and get other services from, but they can get the meters from their plumbers and from us supporting that. And they have total flexibility when today, if they have a 1 year, 2 year contract with Conservice and decide they don't like them today, they send us a letter and we now send the data to the next guy and the next guy, and they can go negotiate versus buying it from Conservice where maybe they're tied into a 5-10 year contract. So hopefully that explains that. I got a little slide on that coming up also. And we know every one of them, right? I mean, I've been in this industry for 30 years. There's an association called Utility Management Conservation Association. It's made up of all the meter reading companies, all the manufacturers, and it tracks the rules for meter reading and billing and best practices throughout the country. It's about, I don't know, we have probably 50, 60 members. Prior to this year, I've been the chairman of that association for the last 5 years. My time rolled off, so I'm still on the board. So we're very familiar with those groups and know how to work with them and know people at every one of them. So that will not be an issue.
Don, I'm going to chime in too. This is Steve. So, I mean, this product line is meant to really empower the contractor. You're not dealing with the billing side of it. I mean, anything that you want to do on the back end or what the facility wants to do on the back end is their business. This is a product, and so it's not being tied to any agreements. And so it's for the contractor, it's something they can just sell as a product without being tied into any long-term contracts. Also, the way we go to market too is we're selling this through wholesale. So we know that contractors generally are going to be buying a lot of equipment from a particular wholesale where they have certain agreements, and you're able to bundle this in with other products that you may be buying, pipe or what have you, and get your best price. And so that's why we don't set the pricing. We price list and we let you negotiate with your wholesaler to get what would be a best package deal.
And you guys over at Quality, just so you know, I'll reach out to you guys after. We will I can't remember if your rep is Robert or Doug, but me, him, and you guys. Yeah, we'll set up a thing. We'll all come down. We'll do a thing specifically with you guys. It sounds like you do have enough questions to warrant one us. So don't worry about that. I'll reach out to you guys.
Anybody else have questions?
Question real quick, Don, because this will be out of my knowing. LA County.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys allowed in LA County?
Oh yeah. Yeah. The problem is LA
I had
County.
a question specific to that one.
Right now, if you send meters to LA County, you're going to be waiting 9 months to get it through.
Do they have to go through LA to
No,
go into
so-
LA?
No, so what we've
Okay, okay,
done,
good.
this is one of the things we manage for you, right? So instead of sending meters to you as the contractor, and now you have to go submit it to Weights and Measure, fill out all the paperwork, we do all that back office work for you. That's part of the service. And we have relationships with 30 different counties, and we're allowed to send them to different counties based on the availability and how fast they can do it to get it into LA County or into Alameda. Think about it. San Francisco County does not have a water meter test bench. You can't send it to San Francisco Weights and Measures and say test it. They don't have a bench. It's got to go somewhere else, right? It's insane. It's insane. So we handle all that for you. But LA is no problem.
Okay, so we definitely get all caught up on those.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep going. We got about 10 minutes, but love the questions. Makes it helps everyone out. So this is what we were talking about before. We send data to over 40 different meter reading and billing companies. We call them RBC, stands for Read, Bill, and Collect. They're really, I mean, look, they'll sell meters, but they really want that $3 to $5 a month billing fee. So if the meter's there already, they're very happy. Like I said, we know them all. From an engineering standpoint, a lot of times, not only using it for billing, you might be using it for cost conservation, and you can get lead points for this, either water efficiency, WE credits, or EA, energy and atmospheric credits. So whether, that's more on the electric side and thermostat side, but, just let it known that there are lead points that can be gotten with these meters. One thing I want to spend a minute on is what we call point of use metering. Remember I said that you had, some of these had all different risers. California really doesn't allow this from a billing standpoint, but we use a ton of this for leak detection, where we have a meter that we manufacture right here that can go on a toilet, go on a sink, or go in behind a shower head. And this is where I can't just put one meter for the whole apartment. I got to go to these individual feeds. I can monitor it, and I can tell you exactly how many gallons are being used by that toilet. Not only that, I can tell you every flush. So we'll show you that. I'll skip through this for a second. So this meter, where all the other meters just give you gallons and how long water's been running, this point of use is a little more sophisticated. It gives you both of those. Has a little temperature sensor, so you know if it's on the hot and cold or if it's been removed. But most important, it gives you what's called events. The event on the right side is every time water stops, starts, every time a toilet flushes. And that's very critical when trying to figure out, is something leaking? So we're switching from a billing concept to a leak concept. We'll come back to that in a second. One other type of meter is what's called an ultrasonic meter. These are not used for, they're not used in apartments to build tenants. They're too costly. These are used when I need to either understand how much a whole building is using in water because I'm benchmarking it, or I want to look at and separate out. I might have one feed to the whole building, but the water going to the pool or makeup water, I need to monitor that. And it's, these meters just strap around the pipe. You tell the meter what it's being strapped around, what kind of material. Is it brass? Is it copper? Is it PEX? Is it something else? And then we tell it what material is going through, water, what size the pipe is. And ultrasonically, it shoots sound waves in there and it reads, it bounces back. And that's how it reads how many gallons are going through. This is great when you need to get, maybe you have 10 buildings on a campus, or you got a restaurant and you don't want to cut the pipe and go through all the permitting. And a lot of times when you get these bigger applications, 2-3 inch, you have to drain the whole building to install a meter. Very costly, very disruptive. So you use this type of meter. So I just want to throw that out there. We do a fair amount of that. I might have a couple of these ultrasonic meters on a site in addition to hundreds of the smaller meters.
Question, Don. The
Sure.
WM3100, is it one size that goes from 1.5 inch to 8 inch, or is there
Yeah,
different
pretty
size
much.
range?
No, it's one size. The meter is the same. The metal that you see there, that's expandable from
Yep.
1 to 8 inch. Yep. The other side, the 3000 series, they do have it's the same meter, but I think the brackets are a little
Yeah,
different.
different brackets for different
Yep.
sizes.
Yep. But it's a great tool. We use a fair amount of these. And again, this might be where I'm putting it right in line with the utility meter, because maybe I don't trust my water utility. Or I want to do, and that's called shadow metering. I might be, I got 10 buildings and I got to report on each building individually. So I'll put one of these meters there or do a riser. So there's lots of different applications. All right. So let's talk about leaks real quickly. 40% of the water in an apartment is used by the toilet, but 70% of the leaks come from a toilet. So we're constantly being asked in either affordable housing, student housing, and market rate apartments, hey, my water bills are out of control. I'm paying for it as a landlord. How do I get my handle on these leaks? And what we do is we will go and sell meter to go on each toilet. And toilets are the easiest. All right. So we expect a normal day, a toilet's used 10 times at 2 gallons each. And our system reads that, and we know because we get gallons and how many times a flush, does a calculation, says 10 events, 2 gallons, normal day. Now I got another toilet that has what we call 1 or 2 events, but hundreds of gallons. Chain stuck, cracked fill valve, that goes on a leak report. Another area is where I got 100 events, but it's only maybe 0.2 gallons or 0.3 gallons each. Well, that's your flapper going shh, shh. We report that out as a different type of leak. And then you got the harder one. 20 events, 2 gallons each. That's not a leak. That's a toilet being used 20 times. Maybe I had a bad burrito the night before. I had a party, whatever. I don't know. But if I see that every day for 7 days or 2 weeks straight, that goes on a what we think is an over occupancy. I got a 1-bedroom, supposed to be 2 people living there. I got 4 or 5 people living in that apartment. Landlord goes in there, hey, I'm here to fix your leaky toilet, knowing full well he opens the door. I got a bunch of mattresses on the floor, violates the lease, safety issues, and they go and take care of it. So we do a fair amount of this in affordable and student housing because you're going to save 20% off your water bill by following up on these leak reports and go fixing them. So that's another area. So when you work with your customers, both new construction and retrofit, if they're not billing, that means the owner's paying the bill. And every time he wants to go figure out how to control it. And he can do that by following up on these leaks. So we're kind of up against, I don't know how much more time we have. See if there's more questions. I can take you through a lot more slides, but I wanted to cover the billing at a high level as well as the leak detection.
No, nothing new had come through yet. What I am going to do in case people need to hop off is I will say thank you for everyone that has attended. Don, I'm going to give you, if people stay on, we'll just keep going. But I want to be respectful of that hour. So thank you anyone that joined us today. And thank you, Don, for being here and presenting for us. If you guys have any questions that come up after, just remember you have my full contact information. I was the one that was sending you all the information. So just let us know. But yeah, Don, just keep going. If they stay on, we'll keep going.
Go over one more section or two. That's fine. The other area is what we call flood detection. So that's different than a leak. Leak is wasted water. A flood is physical damage, water on the floor. And what we do here is we put sensors on the floor, talk the same wireless network. And if there's water, standing water on the floor, this sensor has, you see at the end here of this little square rectangle box, little sensor has 2 metal pins. And if there's water there, it sends off an alarm. Water on the floor, water on the floor. And you'll get a text message. And again, same wireless radio is in this little box. We then have the rope sensor, which would go 10 feet. So maybe go in a utility room or around a pipe or in a air conditioning or around a hot water heater, we'll just encompass it with that rope. And if that rope is saturated with water, it'll send an alarm. So that gives you a little more security. Hey, I got physical water on the floor. And then we get into where we can actually put a shutoff valve to turn it off. All right, so we're looking at a couple different technologies here, but this allows you to turn off the water. And you can have a cadence. And this is the important piece, which says, okay, I got an alarm. What I want to do, automatically shut off the water. That might be cadence 1. Most of our clients would say, no, if I have an alarm, send me a text, let me know. I'll go check it out if I'm close by, if I'm on site. And this is usually a maintenance person, but could go to the contractor. And now they can go and manually hitting the buttons on their app, turn it off. But maybe it's Saturday night and they're nowhere near the facility. Forget it. I'll just turn it off. Right? I don't need to deal with it. So we're taking you from a billing aspect to leak detection to conserve water to flood detection, which is for physical damage.
Question on the flood detection.
Sure.
Does the individual equipment require all the backside stuff, or is it feasible to have it in like a single family home? Because we get asked that a lot.
Yeah, it can you work in a single family home? Sure. Here's the problem. That gateway
Yeah.
is $2,000, whether you're doing a single family home or 400 meters.
Yes, exactly. That's what I thought. I just wanted to,
Yep.
because we do get asked that a lot.
No, there's I'll be honest, there's better solutions for single family home
Yeah.
that work off of Wi-Fi. Right? So you go get the mowing, you go get something else like that. Those won't work in commercial
Right.
buildings, but are great for the home. This is not for the home. Just cost wise, it works fine.
Yeah.
It's a cost issue. Yep. Good question. All right. And then I think I'll skip over thermostats. And here someone had asked before about the
Yeah.
gas meters. And you can see here is a gas meter right in the center there. And you see how there's a little wire coming off? That's the same wire we talked about before on the water meters that tie into our pulse counter and now come up into our network. So we have gas meters. We have a whole host of different electric meters, whether it's a socket meter or a meter that goes in each apartment, cut into the wall. This would be an electric meter that would grab 18 or 12 different meter points, different breakers to monitor. So at the end of the day, we're your meter guy, right? Whether it's water, gas, electric, BTUs, we can monitor any of that and report it out for billing purposes as well as for conservation.
Certainly a case can be made if you have to do the water, then why not tie in the gas and the electric on the same architecture, since
Sure.
the more points, the more return on your investment, since you're using that same gateway to cover water.
Yeah, definitely on a commercial, what you find a lot in the apartment industry is if it's garden style, couple stories. For the most part, I'd say the electric utility, PG&E or somebody like that is going to put in their own electric meters and gas meters, but rarely put in the water meters for each tenant. But there are some of the higher rise that you do put in electric meters, because then the utility says, this is too hard. And I'm going to let the landlord worry about it. So there is a good opportunity. If the utility is not doing it, no question, it should all be on one system. No question about that. And then, I got like 3 or 4 examples because I always think that's useful. This is brand new construction in New Haven, Connecticut. It's all Yale graduate students, but it's really an independent building, 32-story building. In this case, it was dual point of entry. So we put 2 meters in each apartment. In addition to that, we have thermostats in this building. We have electric meters. And they also had retail space on the bottom floor. So there was a grocery store, there was, CVS or Rite Aid, and I forget, Chinese restaurant, something like that. So we're not only billing, using the meters and sending the billing data for all the tenants on the multifamily side, but also for the commercial side. They've also done a lot of leak detection. This was the first LEED platinum apartment building in the United States. This is about 7 years ago. And they use our meters to help them get lead points as well as show their efficiency. This here is, a 300 unit, smaller building, again, 12 stories, 2 meters per apartment. And this was all with the LoRa wireless, the same type of technology we've just been talking about. That's in Massachusetts. This is what we call garden style. And there's over 7 properties for this one company, over 2,000 meters, but they had to put in those individual point of use meters. So they have 3 to 4 meters in every apartment, times 2,000 throughout these properties. And this is similar. This is probably our largest customer. They got, the one property for LaFrac in New York. There's over 4,600 apartments on that site. I think 11,000 people live there. And they have these point of use meters throughout. So pretty interesting property. Brand new construction down in San Diego. This is Lennar multifamily, a big developer, 24 stories. They have that dual point of entry. They have a centrally heated water system. They have 2 meters in each apartment, all talking back on the LoRa network. And it's just a typical 188 garden style, whatever you want, stick built, brick, whatever it is. This has hot water heater in each apartment. So there's only 1 meter for every apartment. And, all reading back through the network, doing the billing.
Don, I know you might not have mentioned it, and correct me if I'm wrong on the price. Are you guys still at $1 per unit?
We do that for the leak detection.
Leak detection, okay.
Right. So if you're doing leak detection or thermostat controls, we charge $1 per apartment to be able to provide the alerts and the alarms, and the same with the flood detection.
Yeah.
But if it's for billing, what we do is, as long as the owner is using a qualified meter reading and billing company, like a Conservice or someone like that, we don't charge, because they're friends of ours, right? And we just send them the data and they know what to do with it. If the owner says, hey, I got a really smart son or daughter and they know Excel and they're going to do the billing themselves, now we're going to charge you $1, because they're going to call us all the time with questions.
Yeah.
Right. And to be honest, I think we have one customer like that and we don't
Yeah.
like them. Right. I mean, it's a hassle. But most of our customers use a third-party billing company. And I think that is it.
Hey, Don, since we still have a couple of contractors in here, I think it's worth
Sure.
mentioning around the flood protection, some of the conversations we've had with
Yep.
contractors around new construction, which
Yep.
and
Sure.
and their concerns around insurance liability.
Yep.
And the conversations we've had with them is about utilizing the system during new construction, the flood the sensors and the shutoff valves. So that
Right.
during when there's an empty building and a pipe should break or somebody's doing something that they shouldn't, that there's an ability to control. And because this system is not integral, meaning it's just wireless things you put around
Right.
and set up, and you can use the ultrasonic to strap onto a main header, that you could actually just go in, buy this equipment, go in, set it up for your new construction while the building's in construction phase, and monitor for any type of flood or break in the system.
Yeah. So,
And-
think about how easy, because the gateway just needs power and uses cell modem, you don't need internet, which you usually don't have during construction, right? So just plug that in, get it power, it's there. Put those sensors, maybe it's the rope sensors or these other sensors, every floor, right? Or maybe it's on the riser pipes that are going up the channel. And now multiple sensors can talk back to a specific shutoff valve. And these valves can be up to 3 inches. So if I got a 3-inch main feeding that whole building, I could have one shutoff valve for the whole building, sensors throughout that building. And if one of those goes off, the head foreman can get a notification that says, oh, I got standing water, on the 3rd floor, go check it out. It's Saturday night, I'm not there, shut it off, right? And especially when you got so many other people in that building during construction that are not just your plumbing team, but as a plumbing contractor, you have to take out insurance. You probably have $125,000 deductible. You go buy this system for whatever, 30 grand, pick a number, right? I mean, depends on how big it is. You not only have some better defense, but a lot of times you can get a discount on your insurance because you have the system. And at the end of the day, when the building's done, you take your gateway, you take your shut-off valve, you decide if you can still find your different sensors wherever they're at. But at least you can take the gateway, the shut-off valve, move it to the next building. The sensors you got to see, right? I mean, it might not be worth the effort, but you know, as long as you know where they're at and they didn't get damaged during construction, great.
I'm about to let Miguel speak.
Sure.
You can unmute yourself, Miguel. It lets me allow you to speak, but you have to physically unmute yourself, and then you can go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You do have echo. But besides that, we'll see if we get.
Can you unmute quality instead?
Oh no,
There you go.
unmute
No, you're
Hugh.
good.
Quality? Yeah, not a problem. I'll unmute quality. Okay, quality can unmute themselves now.
Earlier,
There we go.
is one question I forgot to ask earlier. No electrical is needed or any hard wiring with that system, the LoRa gateway, the L4000 or the W21,
Right.
WM2100, 2200, right?
So the 2100, the meters themselves are just battery operated, no wiring. The gateway needs traditional 120 volt power to plug it in. That's it, right? So you just got to plug that in. And that has a cell modem, so it just communicates. So there's no internet. The only thing that does require something is a display. That lobby display needs power and it needs internet. So you need to have Ethernet line run to it. Like I
Yeah,
said,
so-
that's always going to be in a maintenance office, not a maintenance, a leasing office or a common area that has all those built in. So it's just got to be laid out in the plans, and we indicate that on your plans when we do your takeoffs. But that's the only thing that needs power and internet. But the
Yeah, so
meters
you won't be doing
themselves
any
do
wire
not.
on each. Yeah.
Is your pricing gonna be most competitive using this new system that you presented, or versus the traditional, or some systems that are still used, like that work on the
Yep.
that still require the individual display inside the property?
It is when you have the individual display requirement because the meters are up in the ceiling or something like that, this will blow that away in cost savings, both in the hardware costs because you're eliminating the cost of each individual display with one central display, and then the labor involved in it. So yeah, it's very competitive.
Are repeaters needed at all for
Nope, there's no repeaters. Remember, and that's one of the things we eliminated was repeaters because LoRaWAN goes 15 to 20 stories or 1,000 feet any direction. Traditional systems probably need 4 to 10 repeaters that have to be plugged in, have to be located, have to be safely installed. That all we haven't used repeaters in 5 years because of LoRa. We just eliminate the need for that. Worst case, we have to add a gateway, and that means you're in a big building, which can handle the cost. So that's another big
the
saving.
unit size to make this system competitively price?
Yeah, we pretty much, if when you say competitive, I'm just talking from an owner standpoint.
To make sense.
Yeah, to make sense, you probably need to be, if you're under 10 units, it's gonna, you're gonna take a $2,000-3,000 gateway and have to split that out over those units, right? So that's probably where the break even is, that it's not quite. Now, look, we've done smaller just because that's what they wanted and they're going to hold on to that building forever. And if they're saying, wow, I'm going to go collect $50 a month from 10 apartments. And what normally happens maybe not as much on on a retrofit without a doubt, but maybe in new construction, they would figure out the cost differential. They can lower their rent a little bit or leave it the same and just charge for the water, and it just pays back for itself. But I would say the real break even is probably under 10 units. Above that is no issue. Now, obviously, the bigger it is, the better it is to take all these costs and leverage it.
So, and then most of your customers will use a third party like Conservice,
Yep.
UMC, or some of the other companies that you mentioned to do the billing. I thought you mentioned that you only had one customer that does their own billing.
Right.
You charge them $1 per meter? Is that what it is?
We do $1 per apartment. Look, we're hardware guys, right? We could make more doing that kind of stuff, but we're hardware guys. But yeah, we charge $1 per apartment.
If someone does SB7 require a third party billing?
Nope.
Or does it just require the system to be compliant, to meet all the approvals?
Yep.
And
Yep. If you really read the details, it says you must install submeters. It does not say you have to build a tenant. It does not say you have to use a third party, but you have to install the meters. And the thought process is get it done up front, because if the next owner wants to bill it, they don't want to hear that owner says, oh, it's not economical for me to put in meters on a retrofit basis. So true letter of the law says you must install these submeters, no question about it. And you can still up to you as the owner to make that decision whether to bill or not. I mean, I've never met anyone that installs them and doesn't bill, but that's how it works.
Yeah, and
Or
that's
just-
like the big thing is by forcing that bill, you actually, what they're really doing is forcing the way you plumb the building, because it used to be more cost efficient to do risers to fixtures like you were talking. So, you know, all your apartments are in the same layout. You're going to take your riser, go up and hit all the bathrooms, go up and hit all the kitchens. And you can't do that anymore. So what you're seeing now is the buildings are now plumbed so that each floor has its own supply, so that you are then, you know, able to submeter a single connection to the units. So what they've actually done is dictated also how you plumb the building. So the newer buildings are plumbed different than you may see in older, larger buildings too.
It's a fair point. I mean, look, the drive for that rule is water conservation.
Yep.
Right. That's what drove it. Came out during the water crisis. People know that if you put in some meters, people will conserve water. And California, forget the exact number, but it's around 25 to 30% of the population lives in multifamily. And they're like, well, this is ridiculous. 70% of the population has a meter from the utility, but 30% might not even be held accountable for water usage. Makes no sense.
Yep.
That's why they did it.
Okay. So I think that's covering everything right now. I haven't had any other questions come through.
Okay.
So thank you, Don, for staying with us to work
problem.
through it, get the
Appreciate
last little bit out of there. Thank you, the other people that attended and wanted to see the rest of the information. I did put a link for the presentation into the chat, but I will just email it to everyone that I sent the, you know, invitation email to. It'll just be a link so that you guys can grab it. And like we were talking with quality, if you guys are interested and you do want to see a little bit more, maybe have a little bit more in-depth conversation, or even looking at projects that you may have coming up, we can work with you. One thing I said to quality is when it comes to getting these meters approved, we will work with your team and the engineer of record to work on getting them approved as an alternate, right? That's what we do as a company. So, you know, we have like a lot of relationships with these engineers. So a lot of times they already know us, and we can work with them if we're not listed as an alternative anyways. So that's all I had. Thank you, Don.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.